Good evening, ladies, gents, and upright carbon-based bipedal beings. I want to continue on talking about the communist threat here in the West, what I call urban communism. And I'm going to do it once again to the backdrop of a rage drive in Grand Theft Auto 5 with the old screen grabber, so here we go. Just to recap for those who didn't get to watch the last video because it got taken down, it got reported as pornography by some crazy Chinese nationalist, and then obviously it came back up because it doesn't have any pornography present. So no one saw it, didn't do very well, but it's there if you want to go and watch it. And in that video I described how communist sympathisers and supporters, or agents of the CCP, or just people who listen to propaganda and agree with it, come here to our Western countries, Britain, America, such like Australia, Canada, and they work against us in the shadows. They think they're doing the world a service. They think they are morally justified and superior to us, and that's why they are prolific, and they will keep doing this and hiding, and they don't think it's bad. You know, it's almost like if you trip over a thief who's running away, you know, it's not the same as if you just randomly trip someone over. That's how they feel. They feel like we're the thief and they have to trip us over. And the method they have chosen in order to trip us over is by laying little traps, provoking us into stupid moves or things that could be easily criticised, and by tricking our governments and our companies into investing in them. Black hole will lose all the money, and then they steal the intellectual properties and copy and mass-produce clones of our stuff. Finally, the worst thing they do, they attack their own people. It's not a democracy. They don't have help on hand for their people in a crisis, like during this flood. In fact, they've purposely flooded the lower class areas in order to keep the floods away from Beijing, where all the rich people live, you know, all the CCP guys. So they've sacrificed their poor in order to buy time, effectively, from the rich. They're not going to be able to prevent crisis, just buy time. And the way they get away with this, and the way they escape international criticism and condemnation, is through the propaganda effort on YouTube, Google, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and in the media, in the news. Yeah, it's all a very nasty business, that. But the thing that they don't think, because they're too busy living in the moment for now, trying to survive, scrape through the task, America's going to figure out that they're doing that sooner or later, if they haven't already. And they're going to organise a similar, harsher response. So imagine the CIA, these kind of people, the NSA, or it might even be farmed out to private companies like DARPA, SpaceX maybe. You know, there's loads of people who could do it. And they will be tasked with inserting agents into communist countries such as China under the guise of working with them and do exactly the same thing back to them. But rather than doing it with government support and doing it under cover of secrecy the way that the Communist Party are doing it here, I think what we'll see is we'll be seeing our companies do it out in the open, and it will just be a huge embarrassment every single time they act or they report on anything. And there'll be nothing that the Chinese Communist Party will be able to do in return. Fighting fire with fire, it's a grey area morally. I wouldn't necessarily encourage it or condone fighting fire with fire. It's like an eye for an eye. In a world where you take an eye for an eye, over time, there's more and more blind people until you get to a stage where nobody can see at all. Now, obviously, if you're an absolutist, the way that China's communist leaders are, you think that the world is bound to end in a nuclear war and a nuclear disaster anyway. The only question to be resolved is who's going to survive it and who's going to come out looking the best throughout history. Who's going to have the good stories and who's going to have the bad stories. That's all they care about. And that's their moral justification for lying in the shadows, waiting to provoke and ambush us, innocent bystanders effectively doing nothing, because they dislike something in the politics of our government. But trust me, they're going to love it a lot less, and they're going to hate it a lot more when they've had some of the fire fights fire, when they've had some of the eye for the eye that America is going to be supplying them with. But when you think about it, if they're going to do it openly, and they're going to report on it in the media, which they are going to do because it's going to make them a lot of money, doing documentaries and news stories and 24-hour channels and everything else that goes along with it, is going to be a fucking huge money spinner, if you'll excuse ma français. Yeah, so how they're going to spin it is they're going to have to do it with a moral end in the plan. So I think what they're going to have to do is improve China's infrastructure over the years. They're going to have to build up a communications grid that covers the rural areas, electricity that actually gets to the people. And in order for that to happen, China will have to relax their rules and become less of a despotic dictatorship and more of a Western-style democracy. But it's not going to look pretty. It's going to be an ugly fight along the way. A bit like now we have Just Stop Oil protesters. In my view, they're completely funded by the CCP. They have no point. It's all people that don't care. We have people running around wearing masks every day still, despite us being out of lockdown for years. They're doing that because they've been propagandized, in my view, by CCP propaganda, the COVID propaganda. And we have students saying that they don't want anything, apart from climate change and open borders and all this kind of stuff. Anti-national propaganda. It's stuff that hurts our interests, so they shouldn't be supporting it. And the final nail in the coffin of these people is their support, their open support for socialist ideas and for open communism. So I think, like I say, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be open war on Facebook, on Instagram. And in the end, we have the advantage because, it could be said that a fool arguing with another fool makes two. So if China think that they're taking on a fool, they are fools. They're not. They're taking on an extremely intelligent, well-meaning, but ultimately powerful and savagely, aggressive society. They're going to take on the might of the West. If they think they're going to get away with it just because they deny it, no, that's only going to get them so far. They'll be shot down just like this helicopter's about to be, and they'll have no one to blame but themselves. So coming up to 7 minutes now. The conclusion is, yes, communism and socialism and sympathies in the West is a pain in the backside. It's going to cause us problems. It's going to bring us down. It's going to wreck our economy and cause a recession, which we will survive and come out of. And the reason is because democracy always wins. Not because we will it to, not because of the military or because of America, not even because the enemies are too stupid to take full advantage. It's because it makes sense, logically. Not only logically, but ethically and morally. So that's the end of it, ladies, gents and Pikachus. Democracy is the answer, democracy is the question, and democracy is everything in between. We just need to wait until the inevitable falling of this pathetic attempt at communizing the world. So, I'm going to kill the video there. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now. Bye. Remember, this is effectively war. This is all-out war. It's just they can't admit to that. They can't declare war because they'd be immediately crushed by American military might. So, think about that, and I'll see you next time.